No, Marcus. Not with her. Not in our bed. Keisha's voice cracked as she stood frozen in the doorway of her Atlanta penthouse, watching her husband of 5 years tangled in silk sheets with her own sister, Tanya. Marcus Williams, CEO of Williams Entertainment Group, didn't even have the decency to look ashamed. He simply pulled the covers higher and smirked. Keisha, baby, you weren't supposed to be back until tomorrow. If you think this is shocking, wait until you see what happens next. This story will leave you speechless. Don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification bell, because you won't want to miss a single twist. Tanya, her younger sister who she'd raised after their mother died, sat up with a cruel smile. Surprise, sis. We've been together for 2 years now. The Cartier watch Keisha had bought Marcus for their anniversary fell from her trembling hands, shattering on the marble floor like her heart. 2 years? Tanya, I paid for your college, your apartment, your car. And I paid her back in ways you never could. Marcus laughed, lighting a cigarette. Face it, Keisha, you're good for business connections and looking pretty at galas, but Tanya, she knows how to keep a man satisfied. The penthouse that had once symbolized their success, the success she'd built with her PR firm while supporting his failing music label, now felt like a tomb. Wedding photos lined the walls, mocking her with their fake smiles. I want you both out. Now. Keisha's voice was deadly calm. Actually, baby sis, Tanya stretched like a cat. This penthouse is in Marcus's name. You might want to check your paperwork. The room spun. 3 months ago, Marcus had convinced her to transfer the deed for tax purposes. She'd trusted him completely. Marcus's phone buzzed on the nightstand. He answered it casually, as if his wife wasn't having a breakdown 5 feet away. Williams Entertainment. What? The Jackson account pulled out? All of them. His cocky expression crumbled. How much are we talking? 12 million, came the voice through the speaker. Word got out about the affair, Marcus. The Jackson family doesn't work with cheaters. Neither do the Washingtons or the Thompsons. Keisha felt a cold satisfaction as Marcus's face went pale. Those were her clients, relationships she'd built over years of trust and reputation. You did this, Marcus snarled, jumping from the bed. You called them. I didn't have to, Keisha replied, backing toward the door. Your security cameras upload automatically to the cloud. Guess who has access to the family account? Tanya scrambled for her phone, her confidence evaporating. Keisha, we can work this out. I was just confused, upset about Mom. Don't you dare mention Mama. Keisha's voice could have cut glass. She raised us better than this. Marcus grabbed her wrist roughly. You're going to call them back and fix this. Now, let go of me. You'll ruin us both. I'll lose everything. Good. Keisha yanked free, leaving nail marks on his wrist. You should have thought about that before you betrayed me. As she reached the door, Marcus shouted, You walk out that door, and I'll destroy you. I know every dirty secret about your business, every corner you've cut. Keisha paused, her hand on the crystal doorknob. She turned back with a smile that would have frozen hell. Marcus, baby, you forgot one thing. What's that? I know your secrets too. And unlike you, I kept receipts. The color drained from his face as she pulled out her phone, showing a video of him snorting cocaine at last month's charity gala. The difference between us, Keisha said softly, is that when I destroy someone, they never see it coming. She walked out, leaving them in stunned silence, but not before she heard Tanya whisper frantically, Marcus, what did she mean about receipts? Standing in the hallway, Keisha realized she had nowhere to go. Her sister had been her only family, and she'd signed over everything to Marcus. But as her phone buzzed with notifications, news outlets picking up the story, clients calling to offer support, she knew this was just the beginning. The elevator doors closed, and Keisha smiled through her tears. They had no idea what storm was coming. What secrets is Keisha hiding? And how far will she go for revenge? Smash that like button if you think she's about to unleash hell on them both. The next chapter will blow your mind. Trust me, you've never seen betrayal like this. 3 days later, Keisha sat in the cramped office of her childhood friend and lawyer, Jasmine Rodriguez, in downtown Atlanta. The mahogany desk was covered with legal documents that painted a devastating picture. It's worse than we thought, Jasmine said, removing her glasses. He's been systematically moving assets for months. The house, the cars, even your business accounts. He's got legal claim to almost everything. Keisha stared at the papers, feeling hollow. How did I miss this? Love makes us blind, girl. But here's what he didn't count on. Jasmine slid a folder across the desk. Remember that LLC you set up for your side consulting work? The one you never told him about. Keisha Consultants? That's barely got $50,000 in it. $50,000 he can't touch. And more importantly, it's where you deposited all those retainer fees from the Jackson and Washington families. The ones that technically belong to your business, not his. For the first time in days, Keisha felt a spark of hope. How much are we talking? $2.7 million. Money they paid you directly for PR work before you stupidly started running everything through his company. Jasmine's tone was gentle but firm. Plus, I've been digging into his finances. Marcus isn't just unfaithful. He's broke. Keisha looked up sharply. What do you mean broke? Williams Entertainment is hemorrhaging money. Bad investments, cocaine habit, gambling debts. He owes nearly $4 million to some very dangerous people in Miami. The Ramirez family doesn't play about their money. The room suddenly felt colder. How dangerous? The kind who break kneecaps first and ask questions later. Marcus has been using your connections and reputation to stay afloat. But now that your clients are pulling out, Jasmine shrugged. He's desperate. Keisha's phone buzzed. Another text from Marcus. Baby, please come home. We need to talk. I made a mistake. She showed Jasmine, who rolled her eyes. 27 texts since yesterday. He's panicking. Good. Let him panic. Keisha stood up, pacing the small office. What about Tanya? Can we prove she knew about his financial situation? Working on it. But Keisha, there's something else. Jasmine's voice turned serious. Word on the street is Marcus told the Ramirez family he could pay them back using your assets. When they find out he can't access your money, they'll come after me thinking I'm hiding it. Exactly. You need to disappear for a while. Let me handle this legally while you stay safe. Keisha's phone rang. Unknown number. She hesitated, then answered. Mrs. Williams? This is Detective Brown, Atlanta PD. We need to speak with you about your husband. Her blood turned to ice. What about him? He was found unconscious in his car an hour ago. Beaten pretty badly. He's at Grady Hospital, asking for you. Jasmine grabbed Keisha's arm, shaking her head, but Keisha was already grabbing her purse. I'm on my way. Keisha, don't. Jasmine called, but she was already gone. At the hospital, Keisha found Marcus in a private room, his face swollen and bandaged. Despite everything, seeing him hurt twisted something in her chest. Keisha, he whispered through split lips. Thank God you came. What happened? The Ramirez people. They want their money by Friday, or... He gestured weakly at his injuries. They said next time they'll find you. Fear shot through her, but she kept her voice steady. That's your problem, Marcus. You made this mess. Our problem. His voice cracked. They think we're still together. They don't care about divorce papers. To them, your money is my money. Tanya chose that moment to walk in, carrying coffee and looking perfectly put together. Oh, you actually came. Where were you when this happened? Keisha demanded. Spot A. A girl needs to maintain herself. Tanya's casual response made Marcus wince. He nearly died, and you were getting a facial? He's fine, drama queen. Besides, this is really your fault. If you hadn't turned his clients against him. Keisha stepped toward her sister, fury blazing in her eyes. My fault. Ladies, please, Marcus interrupted weakly. We need to focus. Keisha, I need you to wire the money from your consulting account. Just temporarily, until... Absolutely not. They'll kill us both. Then you better figure out another way. Keisha turned to leave, but Marcus's next words froze her blood. I already told them about your money, Keisha, and where to find you. The machines around his bed beeped frantically as his heart rate spiked. Tanya went pale, finally understanding the gravity of the situation. You did what? Keisha whispered. I was scared. They were breaking my ribs. I had to give them something. A nurse rushed in, checking Marcus's vitals, but Keisha barely noticed. Her mind was racing. The Ramirez family knew about her money and her location. She wasn't safe anywhere. As she stumbled toward the door, her phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "We know where you live, Mrs. Williams." "Friday. Don't make us come looking for you." Tanya grabbed her arm. "Keisha, what are we going to do?" For the first time since this nightmare started, Keisha saw real fear in her sister's eyes. "We? There is no we, Tanya. You made your choice." But as she walked away, Keisha realized she had less than 72 hours to either pay $4 million or disappear forever. Is this the end for Keisha? How will she escape the dangerous Ramirez family? Hit that subscribe button because the next chapter reveals a secret that changes everything. You won't believe what happens next. Keisha's hands shook as she packed her emergency bag in Jasmine's guest room. 48 hours until the Ramirez family's deadline, and every shadow looked like a threat. "You can't just run forever," Jasmine said from the doorway, holding 2 cups of coffee. "They'll find you eventually." "Then what do you suggest?" "I don't have $4 million. Actually, you might." Jasmine sat on the bed, pulling out a thick folder. "Remember your grandmother's house in Savannah? The one that's been sitting empty for 10 years. Keisha paused her packing. "Grandma Rose's place? That old house isn't worth anything." "Wrong. The neighborhood's been completely gentrified. That Victorian house on 2 acres? It's worth $3.2 million now. Plus, I found something else." She handed Keisha a yellowed envelope. "This was in your grandmother's safety deposit box. You're the sole beneficiary of a trust fund she never told you about." Keisha's hands trembled as she opened the envelope. Inside was a bank statement showing an account with $847,000. "I don't understand. Grandma cleaned houses her whole life. Your great-grandfather was smarter than anyone knew. He bought property all over Savannah in the 1940s when it was dirt cheap. Your grandmother never touched the money, just let it grow." Hope flickered in Keisha's chest, but it was quickly extinguished by reality. "Even if I sell everything, it's still not enough. And real estate takes time. The Ramirez family wants cash by tomorrow night." Her phone buzzed. Another unknown number. This time, it was a photo of her outside Jasmine's building with a message. "Pretty lady. See you soon." "We need to call the police," Jasmine said, seeing the photo. "And tell them what? That my husband owes money to criminals? They'll say it's a civil matter until someone winds up dead." A knock at the door made them both freeze. Jasmine grabbed a baseball bat from her closet while Keisha peered through the blinds. An expensive black Mercedes sat outside with 2 men in suits. "Back door. Now," Jasmine whispered. They crept through the kitchen, but as Keisha reached for the door handle, her phone rang. The caller ID made her stomach drop. "Tanya." "Don't answer it," Jasmine hissed, but Keisha was already swiping. "What do you want?" "Keisha." Tanya's voice was hysteric. "They took Marcus from the hospital. They said if you don't pay by midnight, they're going to kill him." "That's not my problem anymore." "Yes, it is, because they took me too." The phone went quiet except for Tanya's ragged breathing. Then a man's voice, smooth and dangerous. "Mrs. Williams? This is Carlos Ramirez. I believe we need to discuss your husband's debt." Keisha sank into a chair, her legs giving out. "Let my sister go. She has nothing to do with this. Family's everything, no? Your sister. She tells me you have money hidden away. Enough to pay what Marcus owes. I need more time." "Midnight, Mrs. Williams. Warehouse District, Pier 47. Bring $4 million in cash, or your family learns what happens when people disappoint me." The line went dead. Keisha stared at the phone, feeling the walls close in around her. "You're not seriously considering this," Jasmine said. "She's my sister. The same sister who betrayed you with your husband, who's been living off your generosity for years. Keisha, this is a trap. Even if you bring the money, what makes you think they'll let any of you go?" Keisha knew Jasmine was right, but the thought of Tanya hurt or killed because of Marcus's mistakes was unbearable. Despite everything, she'd raised Tanya. She was all the family Keisha had left. Her phone buzzed with a text from Marcus's number. "Please, baby. I'm sorry about everything. Just get us out of here and we can work things out. I love you." Another text, this one from Tanya. "They're gonna hurt me, Keisha. Please help me. I'm scared." Then a photo that made her blood run cold. Tanya tied to a chair in what looked like an abandoned warehouse, tears streaming down her face. "I have to try," Keisha whispered. "With what money? You don't have 4 million cash, and banks don't work that fast." Keisha was quiet for a long moment, staring at the photo of her terrified sister. Then an idea began to form, dangerous and desperate, but it might be their only chance. What if I didn't need the money? "What are you talking about?" Keisha opened her laptop and started typing frantically. "What if I can make them think I paid? Buy enough time to get Marcus and Tanya out?" "That's suicide, Keisha. When they realize you tricked them. By then, we'll be long gone." Keisha's fingers flew over the keyboard. "Remember Tommy Rodriguez from college? The one who works for the FBI now?" Jasmine's eyes widened. "You're thinking about setting up a sting operation?" "I'm thinking about survival." Keisha pulled up Tommy's contact information. "But first, I need to make a phone call that's going to change everything." As she dialed, Keisha caught her reflection in the laptop screen. 3 days ago, she'd been a successful businesswoman with a loving family. Now, she was planning what might be the most dangerous night of her life. But what she didn't know was that Carlos Ramirez had no intention of letting anyone walk away from Pier 47 alive, no matter how much money she brought. Will Keisha's desperate plan work? Is this a trap she'll never escape? Don't you dare stop watching now. Hit that like button and subscribe because the next chapter is absolutely insane. You won't believe what happens at that warehouse. The Savannah warehouse district at 11:47 p.m. was a maze of shadows and fog rolling off the river. Keisha sat in her rental car 3 blocks from Pier 47, her hands gripping the steering wheel as she watched FBI agent Tommy Rodriguez check his earpiece one final time. "You sure about this?" Tommy whispered through her hidden microphone. "Once you walk in there, we might not be able to get to you in time." Keisha stared at the large duffel bag in her passenger seat, filled with newspaper wrapped to look like money, with real hundreds on top. "They have my sister and my husband. I don't have a choice." "Ex-husband," Tommy corrected, "and the sister who betrayed you. Some might say they deserve whatever happens." The word stung because part of her agreed. But family was family, even when they broke your heart. Her phone buzzed. 5 minutes, Mrs. Williams. "Come alone." Keisha grabbed the bag and stepped into the humid Georgia night. Spanish moss hung from ancient oak trees like ghosts, and the smell of the river mixed with rust and decay. Her heels echoed off the concrete as she approached the warehouse. The massive metal door was slightly open, revealing nothing but darkness inside. She took a deep breath and stepped through. Mrs. Williams. Carlos Ramirez emerged from the shadows, younger than she'd expected, with cold eyes and an expensive suit that seemed out of place in the grimy warehouse. "You came. Family loyalty is admirable." Behind him, she could see Marcus and Tanya tied to chairs about 20 feet away. Marcus was conscious, but looked terrible. His hospital injuries had gotten worse. Tanya was crying silently, mascara streaking down her cheeks. "Let them go," Keisha said, setting the bag down. "The money's all there." Carlos smiled and nodded to one of his men, who opened the bag and began examining the stacks. Keisha held her breath, knowing they only had minutes before the deception was discovered. "Your husband was very stupid, Mrs. Williams. Cocaine, gambling, bad business decisions. But you," Carlos circled her slowly, "you built something real. Respected. It's almost a shame. A shame that you won't live to enjoy your reputation." The words hit her like ice water. "We had a deal. The money for their lives. And you brought fake money." Carlos's man held up a stack of newspaper. "Did you really think we wouldn't check?" Panic shot through Keisha, but she kept her voice steady. "That's impossible. Count it again." "Oh, we will. But first." Carlos pulled out a gun, pressing it against Tanya's temple. "Your sister is going to pay for your deception." "No." Keisha lunged forward, but 2 men grabbed her arms. "Please. She doesn't deserve this." "Keisha," Tanya screamed. "I'm sorry about everything. I never meant." "Quiet." Carlos's voice was deadly calm. "Mrs. Williams, you have insulted me. Wasted my time. Made me look foolish in front of my men. I can get the real money," Keisha said desperately. "Give me until tomorrow. Tomorrow, you'll be in the river with your family." Carlos cocked the gun. But first, I want you to watch what happens when people try to play games with Carlos Ramirez. The warehouse suddenly exploded with light as FBI agents burst through doors and windows. FBI, everyone on the ground. Chaos erupted. Carlos spun toward the agents, his gun swinging away from Tanya. Keisha broke free from her captors and dove toward her sister as gunfire erupted around them. Stay down. Tommy's voice boomed over the noise. But in the confusion, Keisha saw Marcus struggling with his restraints. One of Ramirez's men was running toward him with a knife, and the FBI agents were too busy with the shootout to notice. Without thinking, Keisha grabbed a metal pipe from the floor and swung as hard as she could. The man went down, but not before his knife found its mark. "Marcus!" Keisha screamed, but it was too late. The gunfire stopped as suddenly as it had begun. Carlos Ramirez lay motionless on the concrete floor, along with two of his men. The others were in handcuffs. Tommy rushed over to where Keisha knelt beside Marcus, blood spreading across his chest. "Paramedics are on the way." Marcus grabbed Keisha's hand weakly. "I'm sorry," he whispered. "About everything. About Tanya. About the money. I never deserved you. Don't talk. Save your strength. Take care of Tanya," he said, his voice getting fainter. "She's just young and stupid. Like I was." His grip on her hand loosened, and Keisha felt something she hadn't expected: grief. Not for their marriage, which had died days ago, but for the man she'd once loved before greed and weakness consumed him. As the paramedics worked frantically, Tommy pulled Keisha aside. "There's something you need to know. We've been investigating Marcus for months. Money laundering, drug trafficking. He wasn't just gambling away your money. He was using your business to clean cash for multiple crime families." The words hit her like a physical blow. "That's impossible. Your PR client list, the charity events, even some of your consulting contracts, they were fronts. You were unknowingly helping criminals wash millions of dollars." Keisha sank against the warehouse wall as the full scope of Marcus's betrayal became clear. He hadn't just cheated on her and stolen her money. He'd turned her life's work into a criminal enterprise. But the biggest shock was yet to come. "There's more," Tommy said gently. "We found evidence that Marcus was planning to fake his own death and frame you for the money laundering. The beating yesterday? He arranged it himself to make his story more believable." Keisha stared at him in disbelief. "Are you saying he was going to let me go to prison for his crimes?" "We think that was always the plan. He was going to disappear with Tanya and let you take the fall for everything." As the paramedics loaded Marcus into an ambulance, still alive, but barely, Keisha realized her nightmare was far from over. The FBI wanted to question her about every client, every event, every dollar that had passed through her business. She was free from Marcus and the Ramirez family, but she might be going to prison for crimes she never knew she was committing. Can Keisha prove her innocence? What other secrets will come to light? This story is just getting started. Smash that subscribe button and hit the notification bell. The next chapter reveals the shocking truth that will change everything you thought you knew. 6 weeks later, Keisha sat in the sterile conference room of the federal building in Atlanta, watching FBI agents spread photographs and documents across the table like a deadly puzzle. Her lawyer, David Kim, the best criminal defense attorney Jasmine could find, sat beside her taking notes. "Mrs. Williams," Agent Sarah Chun said, sliding a photograph toward her. "Do you recognize this woman?" Keisha studied the picture of an elegant black woman in her 50s at what appeared to be a charity gala. "That's Beverly Jackson. She's been a client for 3 years. Her family's foundation does work for underprivileged children." Actually, Beverly Jackson is the wife of Roderick Jackson, head of the largest drug distribution network on the East Coast. The charity work was a way to launder drug money through legitimate-looking donations. The room spun around Keisha. Beverly had become like a mentor to her, inviting her to family dinners, sharing stories about building a business as a black woman in the South. "You're saying every client I trusted, every relationship I built, was fake?" Agent Chin's expression softened slightly. "Not all of them, but enough to move over $12 million in dirty money through your accounts over the past 2 years." David leaned forward. "My client had no knowledge of these activities. She's a victim here, not a perpetrator. We believe that, Agent Chen said. But the prosecutors want someone to pay for this, and right now, Mrs. Williams' signature is on every document. Tommy Rodriguez entered the room, looking uncomfortable. Keisha, there's something else you need to know. More bad news? I'm not sure I can handle it. Marcus died this morning. Never regained consciousness from his injuries. The news hit her like a physical blow, even though their marriage had been over long before the warehouse. He was still the man she'd loved once, before everything fell apart. There's something else, Tommy continued. Before he died, Marcus left a confession, a detailed account of how he manipulated you, forged your signature on documents you never saw, used your business relationships without your knowledge. Hope flickered in Keisha's chest. Does that clear me? It helps. But the confession also reveals something else. Marcus wasn't working alone. Agent Chen pulled out another photograph, and Keisha's world tilted off its axis. It was Tanya, but not the scared, crying sister from the warehouse. This was Tanya in an expensive dress, laughing with Carlos Ramirez at what looked like a restaurant. This was taken 3 months ago, Agent Chen explained. Your sister has been working with the Ramirez family for over a year. That's impossible. Keisha's voice was barely a whisper. She was the one who convinced Marcus to take money from them in the first place. She was also the one who suggested using your business to launder money. Tommy's voice was gentle but firm. Keisha, your sister set you up. The photographs kept coming. Tanya meeting with known criminals. Tanya at banks making deposits. Tanya signing documents with Keisha's forged signature. The affair with Marcus. The warehouse kidnapping. Even her tears. It was all an act, Agent Chen said. She was never in real danger. The plan was for you to bring the money, for Marcus to fake his death, and for you to take the blame for everything while they disappeared together. Keisha felt like she was drowning, but she was tied up. She was crying. She begged me to help her. Carlos Ramirez was her boyfriend, not her captor. The whole kidnapping was staged. David put a protective hand on Keisha's shoulder as she began to shake. Where's Tanya now? Gone. She disappeared from the hospital while everyone was focused on Marcus. We think she's in Mexico with what's left of the Ramirez organization. The sister who Keisha had raised, protected, and loved had betrayed her more completely than she ever could have imagined. Everything, the affair, the money laundering, even the dramatic rescue attempt, had been designed to destroy her. There's one more thing, Tommy said reluctantly. We found this in Marcus's belongings. He slid a letter across the table with Keisha's name on it in Tanya's handwriting. With trembling hands, Keisha opened it. Asterisk, Dear Keisha, by the time you read this, I'll be far away, and you'll finally understand how stupid you've been. You always thought you were so much better than me, so much smarter, so much more successful. But look who's sitting in federal custody now. You gave me everything, food, clothes, education, love, and I hated every minute of it. Your pity, your condescension, your perfect little life while I lived in your shadow. Marcus never loved you. He was just a means to an end, a way to access your money and your connections. The beautiful part is that you did all the work for us. Every client you brought in, every document you signed, every relationship you built, we use it all against you. And the best part? You'll never be able to prove you didn't know. Who would believe that someone could be that naive? Don't look for me. By the time you get out of prison, I'll have a new life, a new name, and all the money you worked so hard to earn. Thanks for everything, sis. Tanya, P.S. Marcus really did love you at first. That's why I had to work so hard to turn him against you. It wasn't personal, just business. Asterisk, Keisha crumpled the letter, tears streaming down her face. The sister she'd sacrificed everything for, the sister she'd almost died trying to save, had been planning her destruction for years. I'm sorry, Keisha, Tommy said. I know how much family meant to you. Family. Keisha laughed bitterly. I don't have any family left. But as she sat there, surrounded by evidence of the elaborate plot against her, Keisha felt something unexpected, relief. The guilt she'd been carrying about Marcus and Tanya was gone. They had made their choices, and those choices had led to their own destruction. Now she had to focus on rebuilding her life from the ashes they'd left behind. David closed his briefcase. The good news is that with Marcus's confession and the evidence we now have about Tanya's involvement, I think we can get you immunity in exchange for your cooperation in taking down the remaining network. What does that mean? It means you're going to help us catch your sister and finish what the FBI started in that warehouse. Agent Chun leaned forward. Mrs. Williams, how would you feel about going undercover? Is Keisha ready for revenge? Will she help the FBI catch her traitorous sister? Hit that like button if you think Tanya is about to get exactly what she deserves. Subscribe now because the next chapter shows Keisha fighting back like you've never seen before. 3 months later, Keisha stepped off a plane in Cancun, Mexico, wearing a flowing sundress and oversized sunglasses. To any observer, she looked like a wealthy woman on vacation. But underneath the designer clothes, she wore a wire, and her purse contained enough recording equipment to bring down what remained of the Beverly Jackson crime network. The FBI had spent weeks preparing her for this moment. Tommy Rodriguez's voice crackled through her nearly invisible earpiece. Remember, we need her to confess on tape to the money laundering and Marcus's murder. Without that confession, she walks away free. Keisha's heart pounded as she walked through the luxury resort where intelligence suggested Tanya was staying. 3 months of working with federal agents, 3 months of learning that her entire adult life had been built on lies, had hardened something inside her that she didn't recognize. Target acquired, she whispered, spotting a familiar figure by the infinity pool. Tanya looked good. Too good for someone who should have been grieving her lover's death. Her hair was shorter now, bleached blonde, and she wore a bikini that cost more than most people made in a month. She was laughing with a handsome Latino man who was definitely not Carlos Ramirez. Moving in now, Keisha murmured. She approached the pool casually, removing her sunglasses just as Tanya looked up from her drink. The color drained from Tanya's face. Keisha, hello, sister. Tanya's new boyfriend immediately sensed trouble and excused himself, leaving the sisters alone. Tanya's shock quickly transformed into the calculated smile Keisha now recognized as completely fake. I can't believe you found me, Tanya said, gesturing for Keisha to sit. I heard about the FBI investigation. I was so worried about you. Were you? Keisha sat down, ordering a martini from the pool service. Funny way of showing it, disappearing while I faced federal charges. I was scared. After Marcus died and everything that happened with Carlos, I just panicked. Keisha studied her sister's face, looking for any trace of the girl she'd raised. There was nothing there but cold calculation. Marcus left a confession, Tanya. He told them everything before he died. A flicker of concern crossed Tanya's features. What kind of everything? About the money laundering. About how you convinced him to work with the Ramirez family. About how you forged my signature on documents I never saw. Tanya's laugh was brittle. Marcus was delusional from the drugs and the beating. You can't believe anything he said. I might have agreed with you a few months ago, but then the FBI showed me the photographs. Tanya went very still. What photographs? Keisha pulled out her phone, showing pictures the FBI had taken of Tanya with Carlos Ramirez, with known money launderers, entering banks with briefcases full of cash. Impressive collection, Keisha said conversationally. My favorite is the one of you and Carlos in bed together. Really brings the whole kidnapped victim story into perspective. You don't understand. I understand perfectly. The question is whether you're going to tell me the truth, or if I'm going to let the Mexican authorities know that Tanya Morrison, your new identity, by the way, is actually a wanted fugitive. Tanya's composure finally cracked. You always were too smart for your own good. Start talking. Tanya signaled the waiter for another drink, her hands shaking slightly. It started 2 years ago. I met Carlos at a club in Miami. He was charming, wealthy, dangerous. Everything Marcus wasn't. When I told him about your business, about all those rich clients with their charity foundations, he saw an opportunity. So you decided to destroy the sister who raised you? Don't play the victim. Keisha, you think I don't remember how you lorded your success over me? How every conversation was about what I should be doing with my life? How I should be more like you? The bitterness in Tanya's voice was genuine, but Keisha felt no sympathy. I loved you. You control me. There's a difference. Tanya's new drink arrived. and she took a large gulp. Carlos showed me how to use your connections, your trust, your pathetic need to take care of everyone. It was almost too easy. And Marcus? Marcus was weak, addicted to cocaine and desperate for money to feed his gambling habit. I just gave him a way out and a way to access your accounts. The affair was business, nothing more. Keisha felt her anger building, but she kept her voice level. What about the warehouse? The kidnapping? Tanya actually smiled. My finest performance. Carlos and I planned it perfectly. You bring the money, Marcus dies heroically trying to save me, and you go to prison for money laundering while we disappear with millions. Except Marcus really died. That wasn't supposed to happen. For the first time, Tanya showed something that might have been regret. Carlos's men were supposed to fake the stabbing. But when the FBI showed up and everything went crazy, you let him die. I survived. That's what matters. The callousness in her sister's voice made Keisha sick. What happened to you, Tanya? When did you become this person? I became realistic. Family loyalty is a luxury poor people can't afford. And thanks to you, I'm not poor anymore. The money won't last forever. It doesn't have to. I've got something better. Tanya pulled out her phone, showing Keisha a photo of documents. Every detail about your remaining clients, their banking information, their dirty secrets. The Jackson family alone will pay millions to keep their drug connections quiet. Keisha's blood ran cold. Even for Mexico, Tanya was still planning to destroy innocent people using information stolen for Keisha's files. You're going to blackmail them? I'm going to retire very comfortably. And if any of them refuse to pay, I'll make sure the authorities know exactly how their money was laundered through Keisha Williams Consulting. It was the final piece of evidence the FBI needed. Tanya had just confessed to extortion, money laundering, and conspiracy to commit murder, all while wearing a wire. But Keisha wasn't done. She needed to know one more thing. Did you ever love me at all? Even when we were children? Tanya considered the question seriously. I love what you could do for me. The rest was just sentiment. The words cut deeper than any physical wound could have. The sister Keisha had sacrificed everything for, the sister she'd almost died trying to save, had never seen her as anything more than a useful tool. Keisha stood up, putting her sunglasses back on. Goodbye, Tanya. Where are you going? To rebuild my life. Something you'll never understand. As Keisha walked away, she heard Tanya call after her. You can't prove any of this. It's just your word against mine. But Tommy Rodriguez's voice in her earpiece told her otherwise. We got everything, Keisha. Confession, threats, extortion. She's done. Keisha made it to the resort lobby before the Mexican police, working with the FBI, surrounded the pool area. Through the window, she watched Tanya's face transform from confusion to terror as she realized she'd been trapped. For the first time in months, Keisha felt something like peace. The sister who had betrayed her, the husband who had used her, the criminals who had tried to destroy her, they were all facing justice. But as she walked toward the airport, Keisha realized her story was far from over. She still had to rebuild her business, her reputation, and her life. And there were still people counting on her. The real clients who had trusted her, who deserved to know the truth about what had happened to their money. The phone call that would change everything was waiting for her at the gate. Justice is served, but is this really the end? What's that phone call about? Don't stop now. Hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell, because the next chapter reveals a twist that will leave you absolutely speechless. Keisha's phone rang just as her flight back to Atlanta was boarding. The caller ID showed a number she didn't recognize, but something made her answer. Ms. Williams? This is Jonathan Pierce from Pierce & Associates Legal. I represent the estate of Beverly Jackson. Keisha's blood ran cold. Beverly Jackson. One of the clients she discovered was using her business to launder drug money. I'm sorry for your family's loss, Mr. Pierce, but I can't discuss. Ms. Williams. Mrs. Jackson wasn't involved in her husband's criminal activities. She's been working undercover with the DEA for 3 years to bring down his organization. The words hit her like lightning. What? She was murdered 2 weeks ago when someone leaked information about her cooperation with federal agents. Before she died, she left specific instructions about you. Keisha sank into an airport chair, her legs giving out. I don't understand. Mrs. Jackson knew about the money laundering through your business. She also knew you were innocent. She'd been protecting you, making sure that dirty money never actually touched your personal accounts. That's impossible. The FBI showed me. The FBI showed you what appeared to be money laundering. What they didn't realize is that Beverly was redirecting the dirty money before it could contaminate your business. She was using her position in her husband's organization to gather evidence while keeping you clean. Passengers were boarding around her, but Keisha couldn't move. Why would she protect me? Because she saw something in you that reminded her of herself when she was young. A smart, honest businesswoman trying to build something good in a world full of corruption. Jonathan's voice was gentle. Ms. Williams, Beverly left you something. Can we meet tomorrow? The next morning, Keisha sat in Jonathan Pierce's downtown Atlanta office, staring at documents that turned her world upside down once again. Beverly Jackson was worth $47 million, Jonathan explained. Money she earned legitimately through investments and businesses her husband never knew about. She's left $30 million of it to you. Keisha couldn't process the words. That can't be legal. I barely knew her. You knew her better than you think. Every time you organized a charity event, every time you connected her with legitimate business opportunities, you were helping her build a clean life separate from her husband's crimes. Jonathan slid another document across the desk. She also left you this letter. With trembling hands, Keisha opened the envelope. Asterisk, Dear Keisha, if you're reading this, then my worst fears have come true, and my husband's world has finally caught up with me. I want you to know that everything I told you about building a business as a black woman was true. I just couldn't tell you about the dangerous path I had to walk to get there. You reminded me of who I used to be before I married Roderick, before I learned that sometimes you have to work within corrupt systems to change them. I've been watching you, protecting your business from my husband's poison, because I saw something pure that deserved to survive. The money I'm leaving you isn't charity, it's investment. Use it to rebuild what my husband's organization destroyed. Use it to help other women like us who are trying to build something good in a world that wants to tear us down. But most importantly, use it to expose the truth about what happened to you. Your sister and ex-husband weren't the only ones involved in this conspiracy. There are others, people in positions of power who helped orchestrate your downfall. People who are still free. The evidence you need is in Safety Deposit Box 4471 at First National Bank, downtown branch. The key is taped under your grandmother's favorite chair. You'll know the one. Don't let them win, Keisha. You're stronger than they ever imagined. With love and respect. Beverly Jackson, asterisk. Keisha looked up at Jonathan, tears streaming down her face. She knew she was going to die. She'd been getting death threats for weeks. But she refused to stop gathering evidence. Jonathan handed her another folder. These are the financial records she compiled. Names, dates, money transfers. Everything you need to expose the full scope of the conspiracy against you. Keisha opened the folder and gasped. The first page showed a wire transfer for $500,000 from a familiar account. The Atlanta DA's office, discretionary fund. District Attorney Williams. He's not related to you, is he? Jonathan asked. No relation. But he's the one who pushed for my prosecution. He said I was a flight risk, tried to deny me bail. Keisha's hands shook as she flipped through more pages. These payments, they're going to Judge Morrison, Police Chief Davis, even FBI Director Harrison. Beverly suspected there was corruption at the highest levels. People who were being paid to make sure you took the fall for crimes you didn't commit. The scope of the conspiracy was staggering. Her own government, the people sworn to protect citizens like her, had been paid to destroy her life. There's something else, Jonathan said quietly. Beverly's investigation revealed that this wasn't random. You were specifically targeted. What do you mean? Your great-grandfather's property in Savannah? It's worth more than the $3.2 million your lawyer told you about. Much more. There's oil under that land. Newly discovered reserves worth an estimated $200 million. The room spun around Keisha. Someone wanted my family's property? A consortium of businessmen, politicians, and criminals. They needed you discredited, imprisoned, or dead to get access to that land. Your husband's gambling debts, your sister's betrayal, even the money laundering scheme. It was all orchestrated to steal your inheritance. Keisha thought about her grandmother's house, sitting empty for 10 years while she built her business in Atlanta. If she hadn't been so focused on her career, if she'd paid more attention to her family's legacy. The good news, Jonathan continued, is that with Beverly's evidence and your federal cooperation, we can expose all of them. But it's going to be dangerous. These people killed Beverly to protect their secret. They won't hesitate to come after you. Keisha closed the folder, her mind racing. She had the money to rebuild her life, the evidence to expose her enemies, and the power to seek justice for Beverly Jackson and every other victim of this conspiracy. But she also had a target on her back bigger than she'd ever imagined. Her phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "We know about your meeting with Pierce." Beverly Jackson learned what happens to people who interfere with business. Don't make her mistake. Keisha showed the message to Jonathan, who immediately called his security team. But as armed guards filled the office, Keisha realized something that surprised her. She wasn't afraid anymore. For months, she'd been running, hiding, reacting to other people's moves. But now she had resources, allies, and most importantly, the truth. It was time to stop being the victim and start being the hunter. Who's behind this massive conspiracy? How far does the corruption go? Keisha's about to wage war against some very powerful enemies. Hit that like button and subscribe, because the next chapter is going to be explosive. 2 weeks later, Keisha stood in the abandoned warehouse where Marcus had nearly died. But this time, she wasn't alone. FBI agent Tommy Rodriguez, investigative journalist Maria Santos from the Atlanta Constitution, and a team of federal prosecutors surrounded her as she prepared to make the biggest gamble of her life. "You sure about this?" Tommy asked, checking his watch. "Once we release this story, there's no going back. Half the city's power structure is going to want you dead." Keisha looked at the cameras Maria's team had set up, the evidence boards covered with photographs and financial documents, the secure satellite link that would broadcast her story nationwide. Beverly Jackson died, trying to expose the truth. I won't let her sacrifice be meaningless. At exactly 6 p.m., Maria's camera went live, streaming simultaneously to every major news network and social media platform. Good evening. I'm Maria Santos with an exclusive investigation that will shock you to your core. Tonight, we expose a conspiracy involving millions of dollars, political corruption at the highest levels, and the systematic destruction of an innocent woman's life. The screen showed Keisha's photo, then cut to the warehouse around them. 3 months ago, Keisha Williams was facing federal money laundering charges that could have sent her to prison for life. Tonight, she's here to reveal the truth about who really orchestrated those crimes and why. Keisha stepped forward, her voice steady despite the magnitude of what she was about to do. "My name is Keisha Williams, and I was set up by my own government to steal my family's land." For the next hour, Keisha laid out the entire conspiracy. She showed Beverly Jackson's financial records proving payments to District Attorney Williams, Judge Morrison, and Police Chief Davis. She played recordings of Tanya confessing to her role in the money laundering scheme. She presented evidence that the Ramirez crime family was working with corrupt officials to target specific individuals for their property and assets. But the biggest revelation came when she showed the oil survey reports for her great-grandfather's Savannah property. "This land, which my family has owned for 80 years, sits on oil reserves worth over $200 million. Rather than make a fair offer to buy it, a consortium of businessmen and politicians decided it would be cheaper to frame me for federal crimes and seize the property through asset forfeiture." The evidence was overwhelming. Bank records, recorded phone calls, emails, and testimony from Beverly Jackson's undercover work painted a picture of corruption that reached into every level of Atlanta's power structure. As Keisha spoke, her phone buzzed constantly with notifications. The story was trending nationwide. Hashtag Justice for Keisha was the #1 hashtag on Twitter. News crews were already heading to the addresses of every official she'd named. But the real fireworks started when she revealed her final piece of evidence. "Ladies and gentlemen, I want you to meet someone very special." Keisha gestured toward the warehouse entrance. A woman in her 60s walked in, elegant and poised despite the circumstances. The resemblance to Beverly Jackson was unmistakable. This is Dorothy Jackson, Beverly's twin sister and a retired federal judge. She's been working with the FBI for 6 months to expose the people who killed her sister. Dorothy stepped to the microphone. My sister Beverly died because she refused to let innocent people suffer for the greed of corrupt officials. Tonight, we honor her memory by bringing those officials to justice. She held up a thick folder. These documents show that the conspiracy against Ms. Williams is just the tip of the iceberg. Over the past 5 years, this criminal network has targeted 17 different families, stealing property worth over $500 million through fraudulent prosecutions and asset seizures. The implications were staggering. 17 families destroyed, their property stolen, their lives ruined, all to enrich corrupt officials and their criminal partners. As Dorothy spoke, Tommy's earpiece crackled with updates from FBI teams across the city. Keisha, he whispered, DA Williams just tried to flee the country. They caught him at the airport with $2 million in cash and fake passports. More updates followed. Judge Morrison barricaded in his chambers, refusing to come out. Police Chief Davis found dead in his office, apparently by suicide, with a confession note admitting to everything. The conspiracy was collapsing in real time, broadcast live to the nation. But the celebration was short-lived. We have a problem, one of Tommy's agents said, bursting into the warehouse. Armed vehicles just surrounded the building. Military-style equipment, no identification. Through the windows, Keisha could see black SUVs and tactical teams taking positions. These weren't FBI or police. Their equipment was too advanced, their movement too coordinated. Who are they? Maria asked, her camera crew still recording. Private military contractors, Tommy said grimly. Someone with serious resources is trying to shut this down. Dorothy Jackson stepped back to the microphone, her voice calm despite the danger. Ladies and gentlemen, as you can see, the people we've exposed tonight are willing to use violence to protect their secrets. But the truth is already out. Every document, every piece of evidence has been uploaded to secure servers around the world. A voice boomed through a megaphone outside. This is a federal operation. Everyone inside has 30 seconds to exit with hands visible. Tommy shook his head. That's not federal. I would have been notified. Keisha realized with crystal clarity that they were about to die. The conspiracy reached higher than anyone had imagined, high enough to deploy military contractors against American citizens on American soil. But as she prepared for the worst, her phone rang. The caller ID made her heart stop. Unknown number, but with a message that appeared on her screen, Beverly's insurance policy. She answered, putting it on speaker. Ms. Williams, this is General Patricia Hayes, Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. I served with Beverly Jackson's son in Afghanistan. She sent me a package 6 months ago with instructions to open it if anything happened to her. The voice that came through the phone carried the authority of someone who commanded armies. The contractors surrounding your building are not operating under federal authority. They are mercenaries hired by the same criminal network you've exposed tonight. I have legitimate federal forces en route to your location. Through the windows, Keisha could see the black SUVs suddenly speeding away as military helicopters appeared on the horizon. Ms. Williams, General Hayes continued. Beverly Jackson was a patriot who died protecting her country from domestic enemies. Her sacrifice will not be forgotten, and neither will yours. As legitimate FBI and military forces secured the warehouse, Keisha realized that Beverly Jackson had prepared for every possibility, even her own death. The evidence was safe, the conspirators were exposed, and the truth was finally free. But the biggest surprise was yet to come. The conspiracy is exposed, but who was really behind it all? And what is Beverly Jackson's final secret that will change Keisha's life forever? You won't believe what happens next. Subscribe and hit that notification bell. This story is about to get even more incredible. 3 days after the explosive broadcast, Keisha sat in the secure conference room of FBI headquarters in Washington, D.C., surrounded by the highest levels of federal law enforcement. The conspiracy had reached even deeper than anyone imagined. FBI Director Martinez opened a classified folder. Ms. Williams, what we're about to tell you is still under seal, but you deserve to know the full scope of what you uncovered. Attorney General Richardson leaned forward. The criminal network you exposed was being funded by a foreign government. This wasn't just about your property. It was about destabilizing American institutions and stealing strategic resources. Keisha felt numb. Which government? We can't reveal that yet. But Beverly Jackson discovered the connection 3 months before she was killed. She was working directly with the CIA when she died. A new voice entered the conversation as a woman in an expensive suit walked in. Ms. Williams, I'm Deputy Director Sarah Chun of the Central Intelligence Agency. Beverly Jackson wasn't just my informant. She was my friend. The room went quiet as Deputy Director Chun sat down across from Keisha. Beverly left something else for you. Something that explains why this conspiracy was so important and why you specifically were targeted. Chun slid a sealed envelope across the table. She wanted you to read this only after the immediate danger was over. With trembling hands, Keisha opened Beverly's final letter. Asterisk, dearest Keisha, if you're reading this in a federal building surrounded by agents, then everything went according to plan. The conspiracy against you is never really about your property, though that oil is certainly valuable. Your great-grandfather, Samuel Williams, wasn't just a smart businessman who bought cheap property in Savannah. He was also a war hero who served in a classified unit during World War II. That unit discovered something extraordinary during their mission in Africa, information that is still classified today. The documents he brought back are hidden in your grandmother's house, in a place only family members would know to look. Those documents contain evidence of war crimes committed by people whose descendants now hold positions of power in governments around the world. Your family has been targeted for 3 generations because of what Samuel Williams knew. Your parents' car accident when you were 15? That wasn't random. Your grandmother's sudden illness? Not natural causes. But you, Keisha, are different from your parents and grandmother. You built something public, something visible that couldn't be destroyed quietly. So they had to discredit you, imprison you, or kill you, but publicly with plausible reasons. By the time you read this, the immediate conspiracy will be exposed. But the real puppet masters, the ones who have been hunting your family for decades, are still out there. The oil under your property is just a bonus. What they really want is in your grandmother's house, in a hiding place she showed you when you were 8 years old. The place where she kept her special treasures. You remember, don't you? Use what you find there wisely. It's not just your inheritance. It's your family's revenge against the people who have been destroying you for generations. Trust only Director Chun and General Hayes. Everyone else, even people you think you can trust, may be compromised. Your great-grandfather will be proud of you, Keisha. You're about to finish what he started, with love and hope for justice. Beverly Jackson, asterisk. Keisha looked up at Director Chun, her mind reeling. My parents' accident wasn't an accident. We've been investigating your family for months, Keisha. Beverly Jackson brought us evidence that the Williams family has been systematically targeted since the 1950s. Your great-grandfather discovered something during the war that powerful people wanted buried forever. FBI Director Martinez pulled out a thick file. Samuel Williams served in the 555th Infantry Battalion, also known as the Triple Nickels. What history books don't tell you is that his unit was sent on a classified mission to recover Nazi documents from a secret facility in Ethiopia. Those documents, Attorney General Richardson continued, contained evidence that American businessmen and politicians were secretly funding both sides of the war. Names, bank account numbers, weapons shipments, evidence that could have destroyed some of America's most powerful families. Keisha felt the weight of generations pressing down on her shoulders. And he brought those documents back home. Your great-grandfather was a patriot, but he was also pragmatic, Director Chin said. He knew that if he turned over the documents immediately, they would disappear and he would die in an accident. So he hid them and waited for the right time to expose the truth. But that time never came, Keisha said quietly. Until now. Beverly Jackson believed that with modern technology and social media, the truth couldn't be buried like it was in the 1940s. But you have to survive long enough to reveal it. General Hayes spoke from the conference phone. Ms. Williams, there are forces at work here that go beyond what you've already exposed. The people who killed your parents, who poisoned your grandmother, who orchestrated this entire conspiracy against you, they're not going to stop just because some corrupt local officials were arrested. Keisha stood up, pacing the small room. So what are you asking me to do? Go to your grandmother's house, Director Chun said. Find what your great-grandfather hid there. But understand that the moment you reveal those documents, you'll become the most hunted woman in America. I'm already being hunted. At least this way, I'll know why. Attorney General Richardson leaned back in his chair. There's something else, Ms. Williams. The property your family owns in Savannah? The oil reserves are just the beginning. Geological surveys suggest there may be rare earth minerals under that land worth over $1 billion. Minerals essential for modern technology and national defense. The scope of what she'd inherited was staggering. Not just money, not just property, but resources that nations would go to war over. I need to ask you directly, Ms. Williams, Director Chin said. Are you prepared to see this through to the end? Because once you open that hiding place in your grandmother's house, there's no going back. You'll be carrying your great-grandfather's burden, and it may cost you your life. Keisha thought about Beverly Jackson, who had died protecting her. About Marcus, who had been weak but didn't deserve to die. About her parents and grandmother, murdered for secrets they may not have even known they possessed. How long have you known about my family? Beverly Jackson brought us the connection 6 months ago, Director Chin admitted. We've been watching you, protecting you when we could, but we needed the local conspiracy to play out so we could identify all the players. You used me as bait. We gave you the tools to fight back. Beverly's evidence, the federal immunity, the resources to rebuild your life, all of that was designed to keep you alive and give you the power to choose your own path. Keisha sat back down, looking at each face around the table. And if I choose not to open my great-grandfather's hiding place? If I just take the money, buy a new house somewhere safe, and disappear? Then the people who killed your family win, General Hayes said through the speaker. And eventually, they'll find you anyway. They've been patient for 70 years, but they won't wait forever. The truth hit Keisha like a physical blow. There was no escaping this legacy. Her great-grandfather had made a choice in a war zone in Ethiopia, and that choice had shaped her entire family's destiny. Now, it was her turn to choose. When do we leave for Savannah? What secrets did Samuel Williams hide 70 years ago? And who are the powerful enemies that have been hunting Keisha's family for generations? This is the moment everything changes. Hit that subscribe button and get ready for a finale that will leave you absolutely stunned. The Victorian house in Savannah looked exactly as Keisha remembered from childhood visits, but now she saw it with different eyes. Every creaking board, every shadowed corner, every family photograph held potential secrets that could reshape history. Director Chun and her CIA team had swept the house for surveillance devices and confirmed it was safe, but Keisha still felt watched as she climbed the stairs to her grandmother's bedroom. Tommy Rodriguez and a full FBI tactical team surrounded the property, but she knew that if the wrong people wanted her dead, no amount of protection would stop them. You remember where she kept her special treasures? Director Chen asked, following her up the antique staircase. Keisha nodded, walking directly to the ornate wooden rocking chair where her grandmother had spent countless hours telling stories about the old days. She knelt beside the chair and felt along its base until her fingers found the hidden panel her grandmother had shown her when she was 8 years old. Grandma said this was where she kept things that were too important to lose and too dangerous to keep anywhere else. The panel slid open, revealing a space that should have held a small box or envelope. Instead, Keisha's hands found something much larger, a leather satchel wrapped in oilcloth, preserved perfectly after 7 decades. She lifted it carefully, feeling the weight of history in her hands. Director Chun cleared a space on the bed as Keisha unwrapped the satchel. Inside were documents in multiple languages, photographs that looked like they'd been taken in secret, and what appeared to be financial records from the 1940s. Jesus Christ, Director Chun whispered, looking at the first photograph. It showed a meeting in what looked like a luxurious office, with men in expensive suits shaking hands across a massive desk. But these weren't ordinary businessmen. Keisha recognized some of the faces from history books. "Is that who I think it is?" she asked, pointing to a man whose face had been on American currency. "Henry Ford," Director Chin confirmed. "And that's Prescott Bush next to him. And unless I'm mistaken, that's Joseph Kennedy in the background." Keisha's hand shook as she looked through more photographs. American business leaders, Nazi officials, and what appeared to be stolen artwork and gold bars being exchanged in various locations. My great-grandfather photographed all of this. The 555th Infantry Battalion was sent to Ethiopia because the Nazis had established a secret facility there, not for weapons development, but for financial operations. They were using stolen Jewish assets to fund American businesses that supported their war effort. The documents confirmed Director Chin's explanation. Financial records showing millions of dollars flowing from Nazi accounts to American companies. Contracts for supplying materials to concentration camps. Lists of stolen artwork and jewelry being sold to American collectors. But the most damning evidence was a handwritten ledger in Samuel Williams's careful script, documenting everything he'd witnessed and photographed during his time in Ethiopia. March 15, 1943. Witness transfer of $2.7 million in stolen gold to Bush Industries account. Nazi Colonel Weber personally oversaw transaction. March 22, 1943. Ford Motor Company representatives took delivery of rare metals looted from Jewish homes in Poland. Payment made through Swiss bank accounts. April 3, 1943. Kennedy family representative negotiated purchase of stolen art collection. Paintings taken from Jewish families in France, now heading to private collections in Boston. Entry after entry documented American business leaders profiting from Nazi war crimes while publicly supporting the Allied war effort. This would have destroyed some of America's most powerful families, Keisha said, understanding finally why her family had been targeted for decades. "It still could," Director Chin replied. "Many of these families still have descendants in positions of power. Senators, judges, business leaders, people who would do anything to keep their family histories buried." Keisha's phone buzzed with an urgent message from General Hayes. "Hostile forces approaching your location. Multiple vehicles, military-style equipment. You have 5 minutes." Through the bedroom window, Keisha could see black SUVs racing up the long driveway toward the house. These weren't the same mercenaries from the warehouse. These vehicles had government plates. "Those are CIA vehicles," Director Chin said, but her voice was confused. "I didn't authorize any additional teams." Tommy's voice crackled through their radios. "Keisha, we've got a problem. The vehicles approaching claim to have federal authority to seize all documents and arrest anyone on the property." "That's impossible," Director Chin said into her radio. "I'm the highest-ranking CIA officer on this operation. They have paperwork saying you're not authorized to be here, and that this is now a matter of national security requiring document seizure under the Espionage Act." Keisha realized with crystal clarity that they'd been betrayed. Someone higher up the chain of command was making their move to bury her great-grandfather's evidence forever. "We have to go," she said, quickly photographing each document with her phone while Director Chun downloaded copies to a secure encrypted device. But as they prepared to leave, Keisha found one final item in the satchel, a letter addressed to "my future family" in her great-grandfather's handwriting. Asterisk, "to whoever finds this evidence. I pray that by the time you read this, America has become the country I thought I was fighting for. But if you're finding this in secret, hidden away like buried treasure, then I fear the corruption I witnessed has only grown stronger." The men in these photographs and documents believed they were above the law because of their wealth and connections. They profited from genocide while presenting themselves as patriots. They built business empires on stolen blood money and used those empires to shape American politics for generations. I kept this evidence not for revenge, but for justice. Someday, someone in our family would be strong enough and smart enough to use it properly. Someone who understood that truth is more powerful than money, and justice is more important than safety. If you're reading this, then that someone is you. Use this evidence wisely. Trust carefully, and remember that the best way to honor the dead is to protect the living. Your great-grandfather, Samuel Williams, Staff Sergeant, 555th Infantry Battalion. Patriot asterisk. Tears streaming down her face, Keisha folded the letter and put it in her jacket pocket. Outside, she could hear vehicles surrounding the house and tactical teams taking positions. "There's a tunnel," she said suddenly, remembering something her grandmother had mentioned years ago. "From the basement to the old slave quarters. Grandma said her grandfather built it during the Civil War." Director Chun grabbed the remaining documents while Keisha uploaded the last photos to multiple cloud servers around the world. Whatever happened next, the evidence would survive. As they reached the basement, Keisha could hear boots on the front porch and voices shouting federal commands. But instead of fear, she felt something she hadn't experienced in months: purpose. Her great-grandfather had carried this burden alone for decades. Her parents and grandmother had died protecting secrets they might never have fully understood. But she had resources they'd never had: technology, allies, and most importantly, the truth was already out there where it couldn't be buried. The tunnel was exactly where her grandmother had said it would be, hidden behind what looked like a solid wall, but was actually a cleverly disguised door. "Keisha," Director Chan said as they crawled through the narrow passage, "whatever happens next, you need to know that Beverly Jackson was right about you. You're going to finish what your great-grandfather started." They emerged from the tunnel in the old slave quarters, now covered by decades of overgrowth. Tommy's voice came through their earphones. "Perimeter secure. We have extraction vehicles waiting at the secondary location." But as they made their way through the woods towards safety, Keisha realized her real work was just beginning. The evidence was safe, the truth was documented, but the people responsible for decades of murder and corruption were still in positions of power. Her phone buzzed with a message from an unknown number. "You can run, but you can't hide forever. Your family's debt is still unpaid." But for the first time since this nightmare began, Keisha wasn't afraid of the threats. She had something more powerful than money, more dangerous than weapons, and more lasting than violence. She had the truth, and she was going to use it. The encrypted phone Director Chun had given her rang. It was General Hayes. "Ms. Williams, are you secure?" "For now." "Good. Because in 1 hour, every major news network in the world is going to receive copies of your great-grandfather's evidence. The president has been briefed, Congress is being called into emergency session, and international war crimes tribunals are being notified." Keisha stopped walking, overwhelmed by the magnitude of what was happening. "It's really over?" "The cover-up is over. The real fight for justice is just beginning." General Hayes paused. "Ms. Williams, your great-grandfather would be proud. You didn't just survive what they tried to do to your family. You ended it." As Keisha emerged from the woods into the waiting convoy of federal vehicles, she thought about the long journey that had brought her here. From a successful businesswoman betrayed by her husband and sister, to a fugitive framed for crimes she didn't commit, to finally becoming the woman who exposed one of the longest-running conspiracies in American history. Her phone buzzed with notifications as news alerts began flooding in. "Breaking! Classified World War II documents expose American business leaders' Nazi connections. Massive conspiracy. How one woman's fight for justice uncovered decades of corruption. From betrayal to triumph. The Keisha Williams story." But the notification that mattered most was a text from an unknown number that she somehow knew was safe. "Your great-grandfather's mission is complete. Rest in peace, Samuel Williams. Your family kept the faith. A grateful nation." 6 months later, Keisha stood on the porch of her rebuilt home in Savannah. Not her grandmother's old house, which had become a national historical landmark, but a new home built on the same property where her great-grandfather had hidden the truth for 70 years. The oil and mineral rights had made her wealthy beyond imagination. But more importantly, the legal settlement from the exposed conspiracy had created a foundation to help other families destroyed by corruption and false prosecutions. Beverly Jackson's name was on a federal building in Atlanta. Marcus was buried with full military honors after investigators discovered he'd been trying to gather evidence against the conspirators before his death. His confession had been more heroic than anyone realized. Even Tanya, serving a reduced sentence in exchange for her testimony, had sent a letter of genuine apology. Some betrayals could be forgiven, if not forgotten. As the sun set over the Georgia coast, Keisha opened the letter that had arrived that morning. The final piece of her great-grandfather's legacy. Asterisk, Ms. Williams. My name is David Samuel Williams III, and I believe I am your cousin. My grandfather was Samuel Williams's younger brother, Thomas. Our family has been looking for our missing relatives for decades. There are 12 of us still alive, scattered across the country, all carrying pieces of the same story our grandfathers told us about the war and the secrets they kept. We've been waiting for someone brave enough and strong enough to tell the truth. Thank you for finishing what our family started. We would be honored to meet you and welcome you home to a family that never forgot. Your cousin, David Asterisk. Keisha smiled, realizing her story wasn't ending. It was beginning. She wasn't alone anymore. She had a family that understood the weight of the truth and the price of justice. Her phone rang. It was Director Chun. Keisha, we have a problem. Remember those international connections we couldn't track? The foreign government funding the conspiracy? What about them? They're not giving up. We've intercepted communications suggesting they're planning something bigger. This was just the beginning. Keisha looked out at the land her great-grandfather had protected, the truth he'd preserved, the family legacy she'd reclaimed. She thought about Beverly Jackson's sacrifice, about her parents' murder, about every person who had been destroyed by the conspiracy she'd exposed. Then I guess we better get ready for round 2. And that's where our story ends. Or does it? Keisha Williams has exposed one conspiracy, reclaimed her family's legacy, and discovered she's not alone in the world. But as Director Chun just warned her, this might only be the beginning of her fight for justice. What did you think of Keisha's incredible journey from betrayal to triumph? Did she get the revenge she deserved? And are you ready for her next adventure? Let us know in the comments below. Don't forget to smash that like button if this story kept you on the edge of your seat. Subscribe for more incredible stories of betrayal and revenge, and ring that notification bell so you never miss our latest uploads. And if you want to see what happens next in Keisha's story, because something tells us those international enemies aren't going to give up easily, let us know in the comments. Should we continue her story? What other secrets might her newly discovered family be hiding? Remember, the truth always comes out eventually, but it takes courage to fight for justice. Thanks for joining us on this incredible journey, and we'll see you in the next story.